Hello and welcome everyone to today's Tech Talk on sync inventory adjustments to Dynamics 365 SCM using Inventory Visibility Service. My name is Hiren Nayak and I will be moderating this session. To present today's session, I am being joined by my colleagues from Dynamics 365 SCM product team, Vijay Shah, Senior Program Manager, and Jasmine J, Principal Engineering Manager. With that, let's get started. So in terms of agenda, we will first cover the overview of this new feature, how this feature addresses some of the challenges which we have heard from our customers in manufacturing and retail space. Then I will go ahead and discuss about the high-level architecture, how this new capability works end-to-end, and the data flow as well. Then we will cover the setup and configurations in detail. How to configure this both in Dynamics 365 SCM as well as on the Inventory Visibility Service side. And then we will review one of the use case to show you the end-to-end demo for this capability. In the end, we will discuss the resources and question and answers, but feel free to put your questions in the chat. So I will now first hand over to Vijay to walk us through some of the customer feedback and some of the challenges which we are addressing with this capability. Vijay?
Welcome to today's Tech Talk session. My name is Vijay. I'm the Senior Program Manager from Dynamics 365 Supply Chain PG team. So first, let's start with what we heard or learned from our customers. The first industry is in the manufacturing industry, facing the global supply chain challenge. Alongside our manufacturing customers, they encounter a large range of pricing issues. So these issues including raw material shortage, impact by different aspects like the trade war, and the persistent struggle to craft an efficient inventory design that to avoid overstocking or stock out. And also the rising energy cost also inflect the price, while the push to operate sustainability is often undermined by reactive, inefficient action, like one-off air treatment to address sudden demand spike. So those factors converge, driving a prolonged bullwhip effect that disrupt the entire supply chain efficiency in the manufacturing industry. So most of the customers, we learned that they grapple with limited visibility into their inventory. Whether this for raw materials, finished goods, or sub-assemblies. So make it even harder to respond proactively to the challenges. And the next industry to watch is from retail. In the long term, we witnessed the hyper-consolidation of the ocean freight carriers and the tightening of logistic capability, raising urgent question about overstock bottleneck. So consumers are rejecting long delivery times in the retail industry, and this will threaten to our customers' brand loyalty. While the critical needs to predict demand intensive as like 2-day delivery stand to set as a new benchmark. So the urgency to optimize their stock inventory and the fulfillment operation efficiency has amplified the inventory management and the logistic challenges for our retail customers. So most of the customers in this industry, we learned that they have a challenge to face the limited visibility into their inventory distribution network. So based on above, what we learned and heard from our customers, so our goal is to build a composable supply chain inventory management solution that can work with customers' multiple existing systems and to manage the inventory data from their omni-channel data source. So how we achieve it? So in the inventory visibility service, we deliver a highly composable solution. This solution can enable customers to gain agility across multiple systems by leveraging it as a flexible middleware layers. So this service simplified integration of inventory updates from omnichannel systems. But by consolidating and aggregating inventory data, it empowers business to act faster and scale best practice. And it also can ensure real-time system synchronization from omnichannel to F&O through the inventory adjustment journal, where the ultimate inventory updates are seamlessly posted in the F&O. And also, additionally, this composable architecture can increase the resilience by granting a great autonomy in managing and adopting inventory update processes. Okay, I will hand over to Hiren to give you a details introduction of how this solution looks like and how it works.
So now in this section, let's review a high-level architecture of this new capability or a composable solution which Vijay has just mentioned. And then we'll also look at the end-to-end data. So this in this architecture, what you see on the top is the external systems. So these two boxes represents the external system. And in the middle, we have the inventory visibility service. And you see a separate block now for inventory visibility service, which is pertaining to this particular feature called inventory visibility service business layer. And then you have a Dynamics 365 supply chain management. So as part of this capability, as you can see, we have introduced a new API called adjustment API. So any external systems like shop, a retail store shop, or a WMS system, or a production system, or a website would like to basically do any inventory transactions, and they would like to update these inventory changes or adjustments in real time to the systems. Instead of building an integration with these systems to a backend system like Dynamics 365 supply chain management, you can now leverage a inventory visibility service business layer. And for high volume transactions, you can do inventory adjustments directly into the inventory visibility service. And what happens as part of the inventory visibility service business layer is that it first accumulates all the inventory transactions adjustments. Then it goes ahead and update the inventory visibility service. So as you can see, you can real-time update the inventory visibility service so that you can always query the real-time inventory on hand from inventory visibility service. The third, it applies the aggregation logic. So depending on the inventory dimensions which you have specified to adjust the inventory, those inventory dimensions will be used to aggregate the transactions. And then those aggregated transactions will eventually be synced into Dynamics 365 supply chain management using the inventory adjustment journal automatically. Again, the journal creation from inventory visibility service to Dynamics 365 supply chain management will be run on a periodic basis, and it will automatically create those aggregated transactions line into Dynamics 365 supply chain management. It will automatically post the journal, and it will also sync back those inventory changes to the inventory visibility service, as well as offset any inventory adjustments which you have done as part of the inventory visibility service. So all of this process can be achieved automatically, and you will be able to leverage the transaction aggregations and would be able to reduce the stress on your ERP systems. Yet you will be able to get the up-to-date on-hand inventory from inventory visibility service. This is the new API and the JSON schema for the new API. So in this JSON schema, you can notice that it's pretty simple and very in line with our other APIs, which inventory visibility service exposes. So in this new adjustment API, you will have to specify the legal entity, the product, the data source, and the physical measure. This will cover in the later section how you can configure the data source and the physical measure against which you would like to adjust the inventory. And then you have to specify the inventory dimensions. So all your inventory adjustments which you are going to make, you will have to specify some level of inventory dimensions for tracking purpose. And then you will specify the number of quantity which you are trying to adjust. In addition to these standard fields, which you must be familiar with the inventory visibility or Dynamics 365 SCM, this inventory visibility service business layer provides 5 additional fields. So external reference category field can be used to identify the source for that inventory adjustment. So is it coming from a POS system? Is it coming from a WMS system? And such kind of details you can store for reference purposes. You can also store the reference ID, like if there is a unique identification for the inventory adjustments, that you can store as well. You can also specify a specific FNO journal name ID, meaning that if you specify specific journal name ID, then the aggregated transactions will be posted into Dynamics 365 SCM using this inventory adjustment journal, so that you have a clear way to identify some of the inventory adjustments by just using the specific journal name ID. In addition to these 3 fields, we have also provided a capability to specify a cost price. So when you do inventory adjustments and you want a specific cost price to be applied, that also you can do along with the transaction date. Now, please note that external reference category ID and journal name are for reference purposes. However, cost price and transaction date can be used for the aggregation logic. So apart from the inventory dimensions, if you have specified cost price and transaction date, those 2 fields will also be used for aggregating the transactions. Now let's look at the end-to-end data flow. So as we were discussing, you have external systems, you have inventory visibility, and you have Dynamics 365 SCM. So from external systems, you can create inventory adjustments at the detail level. So as you can see here, line number 1, 2, and 3 are the detailed inventory adjustments which are being sent to inventory visibility service business layer. From there, depending on the inventory dimensions you have specified, those transaction lines will be aggregated. And so at this moment, in this example, you can see line number 1, 2, and 3 aggregated into the line number 50. And then this aggregated transaction line will be created into Dynamics 365 SCM under the adjustment journal and will be posted. Now, when you look at the inventory visibility service business layer and you review the details line, each detail lines maintain different statuses. So when the details transactions or detailed inventory adjustments are made to inventory visibility service business layer, the first it will be in the created state. And the next step for this detailed transactions would be to post these transactions to IV, inventory visibility in memory cache, so that our IVS is always up to date in real time, so that any external system can query the on-hand data and get the accurate view of inventory from IVS. So that is why it is important that every inventory changes, go ahead and update the IVS in memory cache, and then the aggregation rules applies, and it will aggregate the transactions so that the details line status will change to aggregated. Once the lines are aggregated, you will have another view to look at it. It's called aggregated view, and each aggregated line also maintain a specific status. So when the aggregated line gets created, the status would be first created. If you have for some reason not enabled the sync between the inventory visibility service and Dynamics 365 SCM, then this aggregated line will turn into the status not sync. But let's say you have enabled this because you want these transactions to be updated into your backend system eventually, then the status will change to FNO sync and queued. That means this transactions will be synced into the Dynamics 365 SCM as part of the inventory adjustment journal. Once the inventory adjustment journal header and lines are created, the status will change to FNO trans created. For any reason, if the FNO adjustment journal creation fails, then the aggregation line status will turn into the FNO trans create error. And then if you have set up the batch job to post the inventory adjustment journal, if for the successful posting of inventory adjustment journal, the aggregated line status will turn into the FNO trans posted. And again, For any reason, if your inventory adjustment journal in Dynamics 365 SCM fails due to any validation errors, then the aggregated line will turn into the FNO transposed error. So at any point of time in this end-to-end process, even though it is automated, you have a different way to track what is happening with each detail line as well as the aggregated line. Now, let's look at all the setups and configuration you need in order for this functionality to work end to end. First, we will review all the configurations in Dynamics 365 SCM, and then we'll switch to inventory visibility service and all the setups which you need to do as part of the IVS. So in Dynamics 365 SCM, the very first thing which you need to do is you have to make sure that your environment is on 10.0.41. That is the version where this particular feature has been GA'd. And under the feature management, if you filter by inventory visibility features, you will see a new feature called inventory visibility transaction integration. So this is the first step that you will have to enable this feature. Once you enable this feature, you will see a new tab under inventory visibility integration parameters called transaction. So you will have to enable this parameter, enable event adjustment journal sync for this feature to be enabled. And then you will see two buttons, generate configurations and enable posting job. So this, you will have to click on both these buttons. What these buttons does, it basically automates some of the configurations for you in the background. So when you click on generate configurations, it does three things in the background. First, it creates the DMF import job in Dynamics 365 SCM, leveraging the entities for inventory adjustment journal header and inventory adjustment journal lines. And that will be the mechanism which will be used to import the inventory aggregated inventory transactions line from inventory visibility service to Dynamics 365 SCM. So that is the first thing which it will do automatically. Second thing it will do is it will go ahead and create a new data source in inventory visibility service called @IV data source. And it will also create a new physical measure, adjustment measure for you in the inventory visibility service. And the third thing it will do is it will also create this line @IV adjustment and offset trigger line in the inventory adjustment offset tab. Because once the inventory transactions are posted in Dynamics 365 SCM, it will update the available physical and all the standard measures through which you track your inventory or measure your inventory will be updated, and that eventually will sync into the inventory visibility service. So at that point of time, you need to offset the adjustment measure which you initially updated when you adjusted your inventory from your external systems. Why the offset is important? Because you don't want to double count the inventory. You are already tracking your inventory as part of the physical available. The adjustment measure was a temporary way of looking at your inventory adjustments until those transactions got synced into the backend system, and backend system got updated, and now backend system and inventory visibility are on the same inventory levels. So that is the reason, like for end-to-end cycle to work correctly, and we want to make sure that there is no double count of inventory, we have to offset the inventory adjustments. So as I mentioned, so generate configuration will take care of all this configuration automatically behind the scenes, and it will create these configurations. But you're not limited to that. If you want, you can create your own configuration as well. So as you can see in this screenshot, I have created my own data source and my own physical measure for doing the inventory adjustments as well as offset. So you have that flexibility to define your own data source, define your own measure, and use that for adjustments as well as the offset. Once you click on this enable posting job, it will basically create two batch jobs in Dynamics 365 SCM. The first job is to post the inventory adjustment journal automatically. And the second job is once the posting is done in Dynamics 365 SCM for those inventory adjustment journal, it will go ahead and update the aggregated transactions line into the inventory visibility service business layer, so that you can track what happened to my aggregated lines, at what stage they are in. So for that reason, we have introduced two new batch jobs, and that will also automatically be created and scheduled for you. So you have to kind of go through these configurations just by clicking on these buttons. So this is the DMF import job which I was talking about. So as you can see, it has two data entities, inventory adjustment lines and inventory adjustment header entities, and it will automatically create a recurring job, and that is the mechanism it will use to import the transactions, aggregated transaction lines from IVS to Dynamics 365 SCM. This is the screenshot of the batch jobs. So you will see there are two new batch jobs which you will see once you configure this inventory visibility posting job. So that means it is going to automatically post the inventory adjustment journal and then update status of the posted inventory adjustment journals to inventory visibility. So it will, once the inventory adjustment journal is posted successfully, it will go ahead and update the aggregated line status. Now let us look at the setup on the inventory visibility service side. So once you have configured this on the STM side, then you will switch to inventory visibility service. And in inventory visibility service, as you can see, I'm using my own data source called IV. And then I have created a new physical measure called adjust, because this is the data source and measure which I would like to use for doing all the adjustments. So at any point of time, I can refer to this data source and this measure to see the inventory adjusted throughout the day for specific products and specific dimensions. In addition to that, I have also set up a calculated measure called IV net available. So that calculated measure is nothing but it's a combination of physical available and the adjustment quantity, right? So at any point of time when I do the adjustments, it will basically make a combination of available, physical, and adjustment. So any external system can query this measure, IV data available, to know the accurate inventory on hand levels at that point of time. Next, you will have to click on the feature management, and then you will see a new feature called inventory transactions. Then you will have to enable this feature. So for enabling this feature, you will have to just enable this flag. This will enable the sync feature. And as I was mentioning, you have two ways to update the inventory visibility when you do any inventory adjustment from your external systems. When you call that API, you can either update the inventory visibility service in real time, or you can also schedule it at regular interval. So if your business decide that my IVS needs to be updated not real time because I'm dealing with like high volume transactions, then you can also schedule it every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes, depending on the business requirement. But you can also choose to update the inventory visibility service real time because you want to know real time inventory levels at any point of time, right? So that you can configure as part of this cross configuration. The second configuration is how you want to sync your aggregated transaction line into the Dynamics 365 SCM. So if you are planning to sync this aggregated transaction line into SCM, you will enable this flag. Then you can specify how many lines I want to be part of. I want to create as part of one adjustment journal that you can specify. So depending on your business scenario, depending on the volume of data, you can try and error a base setting for you. And then here you can specify like how many journals should be created. So like if you want to split these lines into one journal, two journal, depending on your need. And then you can specify like how frequently this aggregated transaction line should be synced into into the Dynamics 365 SCM. So you can choose to like do every 30 minutes, every 4 hours, twice a day, once a day, daily, whatever, depending on the requirement. As your business seems necessary, you might want to update your backend system once a day, right? So that depending on that, you can run this aggregation logic and synchronization of aggregation lines into Dynamics 365 SCM. And the last setup which you need is to specify what measure you will use for this API whenever you do inventory adjustments, what journal is supported at this point of time. So at this point of time, there is only one journal inventory adjustment journal is supported. But in future, you might see some more options like movement journal or transfer journal. but at this point of time, this feature is only supported through the inventory adjustment journal. And then the third configuration is what you would like to do when the inventory transactions are synced into Dynamics 365 SCM. Do you want to just create the transactions? Do you want to post the transactions? So that you can specify here. So now let's look at the use case. One of the use case for this capability, and then we will look at the end-to-end demo, how this all come together. So the use case which I'm taking here is like Composable Coffee has retail store across the country, and each retail store has store manager who adjusts the inventory for items such as coffee beans, milk, muffins throughout the day as these items or products gets consumed. Now, store manager will interact with Copilot to make the inventory adjustments. So I have created a sample Copilot here for store managers to make the inventory adjustments. But really, Copilot is just one way of kind of doing the inventory adjustments. You might already have some store apps, you might have WMS apps, you might have some websites from where you can always make this APIs call. Ultimately, the goal is to capture all the inventory adjustments which you are doing in this external application and make the inventory updates into the inventory visibility service. But as part of this demo, I'll showcase how Store Manager will interact with Copilot and how Store Manager will update the inventory to the inventory visibility service using the inventory visibility service business layer. Then my inventory visibility service is configured to run the aggregation logic, and it will aggregate all the inventory adjustments at regular interval, sync this inventory adjustments into the inventory adjustment journals, post those, and then after successful posting of inventory journals, it will also be able to offset the adjustments into the inventory visibility service and update the available physical measures as part of the inventory visibility service. So we'll look at this demo end to end. So I'm currently in Dynamics 365 SCM. And here, as you can see, I'm using 3 products, item 301 milk, 302 coffee beans, and 303 muffin. So we will do some inventory adjustment as a store manager against these 3 products. So let's go into the IVS and let's look at the inventory on hand. So I'm using organization USMF 2 and location 24. Consider this location or warehouse as my store. So here 301 is available 61 gallon of milk. 303 is muffin, which is 40 muffins available. And 302 are coffee beans. So 125 pounds of coffee beans are available to begin the day. Now you will also notice two measures, adjust measure. So currently there are no inventory adjustments made as the beginning of day. And then you will also see a IV netable, which is exactly same as my physical available. Start the day, right? So this is my inventory levels when you begin your day. So now let's go ahead and as a store manager, as these quantities gets consumed, store manager decides to post this inventory into the inventory adjustment journal. So again, this is a custom Copilot, which we will assume that every store will get this custom Copilot will be deployed to every store, so that store manager can interact with it and do all the inventory adjustment, right? So let's play this. And so store manager will basically interact with this Copilot and wake up the Copilot. So here it will say, just say hi. And then it will ask, what would you like to do? And store manager will specify, say, inventory. And then as you can see, it has different options. This Copilot has different options. Like would you like to do an inventory adjustment? Do you like to reserve inventory? Or would you like to check the inventory on hand? So in this particular demo, we will only go through the options of adjusting inventory. So let's go ahead and play this. So here it asks like, what item you want to adjust. So we'll specify that we want to adjust 301, which is milk. How much quantity? So we'll say 4 gallon of milk have been consumed. So as you can see, do you want to keep continuing? So here we will continue and post some more adjustments just to kind of show how the aggregation works and everything. So as store manager will keep on doing some inventory adjustments further. So for 301 milk, 10 quantity will be adjusted. Now store manager will post some more inventory adjustments for different items. So now we will take item number 302, which is coffee beans, and we'll say we would like to adjust 5 pounds of coffee beans because those are consumed. Let's post one more inventory adjustments from this copilot. Again, let's take a coffee beans, and this time we can say, okay, adjust the quantity of 7 pounds. So now we have posted quite a few of transactions, and now let's go ahead and review how this looks like into the inventory visibility service business layer. So in the inventory visibility service, you will see a new menu item called inventory transactions, right? So let's play this. So you go into the inventory transactions, and here you will see the two views, detail view and the aggregated view. So detail view will show each and every inventory adjustments which have been made from the external systems. So let's go ahead and look at the view. If you look at the top 4 transactions, 2 of them are for item 301 for 4 gallon and 10 gallon of milk. And then the top 2 are for item 302 for 5 and 7 pounds respectively. And look at the status. It's already been aggregated. Uh, our aggregation logic has already run. So you will see the aggregated line for first 2 lines. So if you look at this line for product 301, these are already aggregated for quantity 10 and 4. And if you look at the first 2 lines, these 2 lines are aggregated against this aggregation line ID for 7 and 5 pounds of coffee beans. Now let's go ahead and look at the aggregated view. So in the aggregated view, you can see 2 lines for item 301 and 302. And currently they are in the status FNO sync and queued. Because I have enabled the aggregated line transaction sync to FNO, they are currently into the FNO sync and queued. That means that these 2 transactions are going to get synced into the finance and operations as part of the inventory adjustment journal. Here you can see all the dimensions, quantity, and everything. So if you go into the aggregated line view, you will see all that details. But what you will also see is the FNO journal ID. So this is the journal which will be used and under which this aggregation transactions line will be created. Again, for second line also, it will also go into the same journal ID. So both this aggregation line will be part of the same FNO inventory adjustment journal, and you can see the quantity are summed up as well as part of this aggregation. So aggregation has basically run on 2 inventory dimensions, site and warehouse, or site and store, you could say. Now let's look at the inventory on hand because we have done some inventory adjustments. So now you should see the adjust measure has been updated. So 14 has been consumed for 14 gallon of milk has been consumed, and 12 gallon of coffee beans 12 pounds of coffee beans have been consumed. So you can see the IBIT net available. So any external system, they can always query inventory visibility service and get the latest accurate view of inventory. So now, as you can see, it's basically created the inventory adjustment journal in FNO, and you can see the coffee beans and milk, both the items have been created here with the summed up quantity against this diet and store. Now, we have also set up a job to automatically post the inventory adjustment journal in Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain. So we should see this aggregated line status change to FNO transposted. So now my inventory adjustment journal in Dynamics 365 SCM has been posted. So 436 number journal is already posted, right? So when this is posted, it basically also sync all this information. When the inventory transactions were posted, it syncs that information back into the inventory visibility service, and it will also offset the inventory adjustment measure, right? So let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so we saw the posted journal. Now we are looking at the inventory on hand again and see what is our inventory on hand. So this was our initial inventory on hand because we adjusted the quantity. Now let's go ahead and click query again and see if this adjustment measure has been offsetted. So now you can see available physical has changed, and now our adjustment journal should be 0 because this has been offsetted. And now my IB net available is also changed, right? So this is how the offset of inventory has been taken place when when the inventory adjustment journal was posted in Dynamics 365 SCM, and it also updated the aggregated line transactions. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the next demo. So we saw a demo where we were at the external system, or the store manager was doing the inventory adjustments to the Copilot. But we also have a user interface way of doing this inventory adjustment. So if you're planning to implement this solution in your organization for testing purposes, you can always use this approach of user interface way of doing some of the inventory transactions and understand how the aggregation logic applies and everything. So let's take another example for item 303. Muffins, and we can run through the same scenario, but through user interface, right? So we'll go into the inventory transactions, create transactions and inventory transactions. So here you can specify the product, you can specify the data source, the measure, and then you can specify the quantity. We'll keep the site and store same because we want to consume some of the muffins. So let's specify the quantity in negative. And here are the fields which you can track if you want additional fields you want to track. But for this demo, we'll keep it simple. We'll just post it. And let's do another inventory adjustment as well for some more muffins to consume. So let's do another 8 muffin. Let's consume them. So both these transactions have been posted. If you can see the detailed view of the transaction for this item 303, they are into IB posted status, meaning that as soon as we have done this inventory adjustment from external system to IBS, they have been posted into the IB immediately. And soon they should be change the status into the aggregated state because that is the next step in this process. So we should see that -8 and -5 quantity should be aggregated as part of the aggregation line. And we should be able to see adjustment measure changed to -13 and IB net has changed to 27. So here it should change to aggregated. So now it both are aggregated against this aggregated line ID. We can see all the details around product, summed up quantity, the dimension it has used for aggregation, and the inventory adjustment journal, which is inventory adjustment journal 437. So let's see if the inventory adjustment journal has been created yet. It looks like it has not yet run the sync process. So let's look at the aggregated line and what is the status of the aggregated line. So aggregated line status is FNO sync and queued. So it is still syncing that transactions into the FNO. It has still not sync everything and created the inventory adjustment journal line. So let's give one more minute and see if it changes the status. So currently it is FNO sync and queued. And let's wait for this line to get sync into the FNO. Okay, so now the status has changed to FNO trans created. So we should be able to see a journal in inventory 437, and you can see the muffins for 13 quantity has been created. Now we can go back to inventory visibility service, and we can see that posting job should run depending on the recurrence of the posting job. This will take a little bit of time, but I think I have set up the 2 minutes recurrence. So this should change into the FNO transport state in a second here. But you got the idea in terms of so now the the status has changed to FNO trans posted, that means that this inventory adjustment journal has been posted as part of Dynamics 365 SCM. So it's no longer unposted. We should be able to see it as part of the posted journal, and we can verify the muffins 13 quantities have been consumed. And since sync is already running between the FNO and inventory visibility service, we should also be able to see the offset of those quantities, and adjust measure also will get updated, and so is the available physical measure. So this was the end-to-end demo for one of the use cases. You could use this capability for functionalities like cycle counting, or if you have like a lot of external warehouse systems where throughout the day high volume inventory transactions are happening, and you don't want to stress Dynamics 365 SCM with all of those inventory transactions. Then at periodic interval, you can send those inventory adjustments to inventory visibility service business layer, and then inventory visibility service will take care of that automation, aggregate those transactions line, and at regular interval, it will update your backend, right? So you can avoid a lot of integrations directly with Dynamics 365 SCM, leveraging this capability, and integrating with inventory visibility service has been pretty easy. If you have seen our previous tech talks, and if you have already implemented for some customers, or if you are a customer and if you are using it, it provides set of APIs, and it's pretty easy to kind of integrate and pass in your JSON schema with all the parameters required for that API, right? So, and again, this is meant, the inventory visibility service is meant for the high volume transactions. It's a microservice, it's a scalable service. So it can handle the high volume scenarios, because there is really not such or too much business logic. You are simply basically deciding what data source you want to update and where you want to track your inventory adjustments, right? So you can pretty much integrate your other external systems with IVS. Okay, so that's pretty much what we wanted to cover. So in terms of resources, we have the link for this Learn site, where you can find all about this new capability and how to configure and test it end to end. And then we have a EMR channel or Viva Engage. You can join this channel. You can provide your feedback. You can share your challenges. Product team regularly monitors for the comments and feedback. So it's a great way to kind of get in touch with product team. We have the tech talks. Previous tech talks, we have done like number of tech talks for inventory visibility service. So if you're not familiar with it, you should definitely go ahead and check. And looking at reviewing those tech talks will also help you understand when should you use the reservation capability, when should you use the inventory adjustment capability, in what scenario it will fit, and things like that, right? And then we have a link for the business processes. So this particular capabilities will fall under inventory to deliver business processes. And if some of you are already familiar with our initiative to define the business processes, high-level business processes, L1, L2 processes, and detail level processes. So this inventory management will basically fall into this inventory to deliver overall business process. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if there are any questions in the chat. Inventory visibility, which industry, retail versus manufacturing? Pretty much you can use it for any of the industry. Like it's just a microservice application. It has built-in integration with Dynamics 365 SCM, and it provides set of APIs. So you can pretty much integrate with any external applications, depending on the business requirement. The next question we have is, do we have API to provide snapshot of inventory from IVS to external systems? We get this question a lot, but you have to understand the fundamental architecture or design for the inventory visibility service. The traditional way of viewing the inventory is like always export the data out of D365 of your inventory and store it into your external systems, right? Inventory visibility has been designed not to kind of cater that scenario. Inventory visibility is a microservice. So any external systems, whenever it needs inventory information, it should just send a query to inventory visibility service and you will get a real-time inventory on hand data. And again, inventory visibility service has capability to store the data across data sources. So if you have multiple systems, all of that can be a central repository into IBS, and you don't have to replicate this inventory data into multiple systems. Everything kind of reside at one place. And because it's a microservice, because it's scalable, you can get your inventory on hand data just by calling an API and get the real-time inventory on hand data. So that's something fundamentally different than what a snapshot can do versus what a real-time inventory labels you can see from IVS. Can IVS adjustment work for items with location, not just site and warehouse? Yes. It will pretty much work with any inventory dimensions. So site, warehouse, location, batch, serial, configuration, color, any kind of, at any level, any inventory dimension level, you can basically do the inventory adjustments. And depending on those inventory dimensions, it will use the application logic. So we need Power App, Power Automate license, part of the FNO SCM license. So inventory visibility service has always been free. It's been part of the Dynamics 365 license. You only need minimum 20 SCM enterprise license, and you would be pretty much be able to set up this inventory visibility service. Do we need to set the throttling priority for 2 batch jobs in FNO, or it is set by default? So when you click on that configuration button, enable posting job, it will automatically set as normal. But if you think that this particular batch jobs are critical, then you can always change the criticality of those batch jobs. Does this API include cycle count? So this does not include the cycle count. So you will have to basically do the cycle counting and then define a way to do the inventory adjustments. You will have to find build a solution to basically call this inventory adjustments API. So all your cycle counting data will come into the inventory and accumulate all the inventory adjustments as part of the inventory visibility service business layer. And from there, everything will be automated in terms of aggregation, syncing, and posting of inventory. Dynamics 365 SCM. It's not going to post a cycle counting journal or anything like that in FNO. Currently, it's only supporting the inventory adjustment journal. Next question is, inventory visibility integration parameter is a separate module, not a part of invent module. Not sure what you meant by a module, but inventory visibility is as a microservice, and it has a built-in integration with Dynamics 365 SCM. So as you do all the inventory transactions in SCM, those will be synced into the inventory visibility in near real time. It's a bad job. Minimum frequency is 1 minute. That's why it's called near real time. This feature is in preview stage. No, as of 10.0.41, this feature has GA'd. So you can pretty much utilize that if you're on that version. Will these slides be shared? Yes, the slides and recordings will be shared on the Dynamics community website in 5 to 7 business days. Okay, I think we have answered almost all of the questions. Why IVS? The standard SCM solution with added custom APIs with external system is not sufficient. Yeah, that is exactly why we are, because you don't want to stress your Dynamics 365 SCM because there are a lot of other things are going on in the backend systems, and it can stress your systems if you build the direct integration with Dynamics 365 SCM. So that is one reason that we are taking away that stress from Dynamics 365 SCM using IVS. And the biggest and the main reason of using IVS is that if you are maintaining inventory in different systems, then IVS can become your central source of repository. SCM can only provide you if you have multiple systems, SCM, WMS, PLM, and things like that. Then you will have to query different sources and get the inventory. Versus if you are maintaining a central repository of inventory in IVS, then you have one place to go to query the inventory. Also, the building integrations is very easy with IVS. So there are a lot of advantages. Please refer our previous tech talks on IVS so that you can make the right call in terms of what scenarios you should use inventory visibility service. Okay, please feel free to submit your responses on this survey link. We would really appreciate your feedback in order for us to kind of improve on this TED Talks content and presentation. But we really thank you for your time and joining this Tech Talk. We'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for joining.